Tonight we're bringing you the story of two girls, sisters, Noor, who's 10 years old, and Ala, who's 8. They're heroes. They lived in eastern Ghouta on the outskirts of the Syrian capital of Damascus. As rockets rained down on their neighborhood, these two sisters documented the horror and beamed it online for the world to see. We're calling them the world's youngest war reporters. From a country where children have only made news for the kind of victimization they've suffered. Here's a story of grit and courage. The sisters have now lost their home, unfortunately destroyed in an attack. They've successfully escaped to the relative safety of Idlib. This is their story.
We are hearing that Assad regime has brought most of its forces to destroy Ghouta.
She was the brightest 5th grader in her school. But 10-year-old Noor's biggest test was survival. At the tender age of 10, she saw her toys being blown up, her school bombed, and her home destroyed beyond recognition. But Noor was not the one to be scared. She wanted to show the world the nightmare Syrian children were going through.
To everyone who can hear me, how many victims do you want to see before stopping the bombing? Hundreds of children and civilians killed and injured. You are just watching. What is happening here? Please stop bombing. Save Ghouta, please.
For the last 5 months, Noor and her 8-year-old sister Ala are tweeting videos of the destruction in Syria's eastern Ghouta. On 22nd of March, they posted this heart-wrenching appeal.
There is no water, no food, no life. The regime forces are very close to us. There is nowhere to go from here. It seems to be the end somehow. If the international community wants to save us, it's time to do it now. We can no longer do help us and save children before it's too late.
And 9 days later, they couldn't have been more thankful.
You know, my friend, after everything, after destruction, starving, fear, siege, we are arrived in Idlib safely. We are so happy, but we left everything. We left our home, our memories, our dreams, our friends, and our school. We hope one day I can go back to Ghouta. Thank you, my friend.
Noor and Ala stared death in the face and triumphed. But not everyone in Ghouta is as lucky. While their stories tug at our heartstrings, and their courage gives us inspiration, their narrative highlights the worst humanitarian crisis of modern times. Bureau Report, WION.
I'm Noor from BC.
As for the families of those who've been killed, it's been a day of painful closure. Their loved ones have returned, but in coffins. They're heartbroken and inconsolable.
A long, painful wait coming to a bitter end. The family members of 39 Indians who went missing in Iraq in 2014 have spent the last 4 years waiting for a glimmer of hope and a glimpse of their loved ones. But this was not the homecoming they had dreamed of. Rakesh Kumar's mother had grand plans of getting her son married. But as his mortal remains arrived in Amritsar, she was inconsolable, holding the headdress she wanted him to wear on his wedding day. In nearby Kapurthala, it's been a harrowing 4 years for Gobinder Singh's family. Running from pillar to post in search of answers, losing their sole breadwinner has left them devastated.
इकट्ठे सोते थे, इकट्ठे खेलते थे। ऐसा कोई दिन नहीं है जिसको हम एक पल के लिए भी हम ना याद कर पाएं, क्योंकि उनका मेरे साथ रिलेशन ही ऐसा था, बड़ा भाई तो कम था, दोस्तों के साथ दोस्तों की तरह रहता था, हर पल खेलते झगड़ते भी थे। लोग गरीब हैं, इतने संपन्न नहीं है कि हम लोग, यदि इतने होते तो मेरा भाई इराक ही ना जाता। तो अब हम गवर्नमेंट से ये रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि अभी हमारे परिवारों के बारे में कुछ सोचे, क्योंकि इनका हमारे पास ना तो कोई ज़मीन है तो ना ही हमारी कोई फाइनेंशियल हेल्प है ऐसी कोई कि हम लोग इतने संपन्न हैं कुछ अपने पैरों पे खड़े हो सकें। तो हम सरकार से रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि हमारे परिवार के बारे में कुछ सोचें।
Like Rakesh Kumar and Gobinder Singh, 37 other Indians had packed their bags for Iraq, seeking a better future. They worked as construction workers employed by an Iraqi company in Mosul and were taken hostage when ISIS took control of the second largest city in Iraq. On the 20th of March this year, India's External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj had informed Parliament that they had been killed. Their remains were exhumed from a mass grave in Badush, a village northwest of Mosul in Iraq. Of the 39 who died, 27 were from Punjab, 4 from Himachal Pradesh, 2 from West Bengal and 6 from Bihar. One body has not been brought back for now, as the DNA testing had only provided a 70% match. The others have had more than a 95% match. Minister of State for External Affairs General V.K. Singh, who travelled to Iraq to bring back the bodies, has assured jobs and compensation for the bereaved families. The government has also warned against illegal agents who con innocent job seekers.
ये इलीगल एजेंट के थ्रू है। अब जब इलीगल एजेंट के थ्रू जाते हैं तो आधे टाइम तो पता ही नहीं होता कि कौन कहां गया है। तो हमने हर प्रदेश को कहा है कि कानून और व्यवस्था आपका काम है, बराए मेहरबानी आप अपने अपने प्रदेश में ऐसे इलीगल एजेंट्स को पकड़िए और उनके खिलाफ एक्शन लीजिए।
From Amritsar, the minister is expected to go to Patna, followed by Kolkata, to hand over the bodies to the relatives. While the return of the bodies brings an end to a 4-year-long wait for the families of these 38 Indians, the weight of the closure is immeasurable and comes with several questions whose answers remain buried. Bureau Report, WION.
We'll come to that in a bit. Let's first tell you what the news is. The second disappointment in 7 months. India's space research organisation ISRO has lost contact with GSAT-6A. It's recently launched communications satellite. But could this be a case of sabotage is the question many are asking, and here's why. In fact, ISRO's achievements have been tremendous, from a Mangalyaan, a space probe orbiting Mars since 2014, to its PSLV satellite launch vehicle, which is fast emerging as a popular and cheap quote-unquote ferry service for satellites belonging to many other countries. Indians have much to be proud of. So even if GSAT-6A is given up as a technical failure, we'll soon be over it. But was it really a glitch is the question we're asking. Are there saboteurs out there who are capable of jamming communications between satellites and ground controls, like, say, hostile countries determined to abort India's space efforts? It isn't impossible. A survey by US-China Commission reported that in 2008, 10 years back, hackers in China had attacked 2 US military satellites, Landsat-7 and Terra AM-1. The pirates controlled the 2 satellites together for a total of 14 minutes. Now, that's a long span of time when it comes to top sensitive communications. It's been 10 years since that space war, and it is feared that hackers would have only gained greater expertise by now. Some experts say that it's not easy. Jammers of satellites are not difficult to identify. And besides, the enormous amount of power needed to jam a satellite that's about 5 million watts, is prohibitively expensive. It may be that for hobby hackers, but not so for hostile governments endowed with deep pockets and geostrategic ambitions. You know what we are arriving at. The GSAT-6A that is still orbiting in healthy, if silent condition, was not any ordinary communication satellite. It was a crucial satellite with both civilian and defense applications. ISRO is still trying to restore contact. One thing all scientists agree upon is that existing communication systems are not hack-proof. There is every possibility of it having been hacked. There's some good news, though, for gloomy space enthusiasts and worried defense strategists. ISRO is working on satellite networks for secure, quote-unquote, quantum communications. That is a kind of a safety network for a given country's satellites, which employs an aspect of quantum mechanics to ensure inter-satellite and ground communications. China has already pioneered quantum communications, but when India does, its own sensitive pies in the sky will no longer be in danger of attacks from pirates in outer space, most of whom live in India's immediate neighborhood. As of now, scientists at the Indian Space Research Organization are desperately trying to establish communication with the $41 million GSAT-6A. It was for the exclusive use of the armed forces, as I said, with a clutch of ambitious launches scheduled for this year. ISRO needs to find out what went wrong with this one.
Is the Indian Space Research Organization hair-splitting when it says the GSAT-6A mission launched on Saturday is not a failure? In ISRO's view, the problem lies not in the satellite but in the communications link which ISRO's mission control is trying to re-establish. Communications was lost when the command was given for moving the satellite to its final orbital slot. Senior ISRO officials said communications is linked to power failure. Power failure prompts the satellite to go into safe mode. Safe mode is to avoid further damage to the satellite. Power failure can also trigger other problems. ISRO chairman K. Sivan appeared confident things would work out. He said, quote, "We're going through the data meticulously to establish a link with the satellite. Our team is continuously trying to establish the link," unquote. The mishap is the second in 7 months after a replacement satellite for the regional space-based navigation system failed to eject from the heat shield. An investigation found that a controlled explosive failed to detonate and break the latch that locked the satellite to the heat shield. The latest mishap also seems similar to the loss of link with the ANGOSat-1, a communications satellite launched by Russia in December last year for the Republic of Angola. But communications was later restored and the satellite was gradually moved to its final orbiting position. GSAT-6A is intended to provide high-speed internet access on mobile devices for the armed forces. If ISRO is not able to get it back on track, the armed forces will have to wait until a successor satellite is deployed, which could take time. Could the incident set back other launches for this year? Top scientists dismiss those fears. In the next few months, ISRO will launch another lunar mission, Chandrayaan-2, the next generation of remote sensing satellites, Cartosat-3, a geo-imaging satellite, GSAT-1, for spatial resolution from 50 meters to 1.5 kilometers, OceanSat-3 to study ocean colors and measure temperatures, radar imaging satellite RISAT-1 for data collection in agriculture, forestry, etc., and at least 250 other satellites, Indian and foreign. But ISRO needs to know and understand what went wrong with GSAT-6A. Was it a technical glitch, a human error in programming, or faulty components? For its future success, ISRO needs to find out what happened. Bureau Report, WION.
In 1981, India's space scientists transported a homemade satellite on a creaky wooden bullock cart to the launch pad. We have, admittedly, come a long way. 3 decades on, India has launched more than 100 satellites into orbit from a single rocket. In 2014, it successfully guided a satellite to an orbit around Mars, becoming only the 4th country in the world to do so. In 2008, India launched its first lunar mission, Chandrayaan-1. Along the way, India has tested a scaled prototype of its own space shuttle and is now preparing for another moon mission, which will involve landing a remotely operated rover on the planet. India's dual-use satellites, Cartosat and technology experiment satellites, have served both civil and military applications. India ranks among the top 10 countries most active in space. So are there any other lost satellites apart from the current one? Plenty. There's Chandrayaan, with which India lost contact in 2009, but it was tracked down by the US using a powerful radar. It is about 200 kilometers above the moon right now in a polar orbit. In 1957, the Russians launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. And since then, it has been estimated that at least 2,500 satellites have been put into orbit. Some of them are lost. How many are lost is harder to figure out, because these include military satellites such as the American Zuma, launched in January this year by the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It's not clear what happened. It's not clear if there was a problem with the second stage booster, which SpaceX denies, if there was a problem with the payload adapter that separates the rocket from the satellite. That was made by Lockheed Martin. It's not even clear if Zuma drifted off into space or if it burnt up while in a controllable descent to Earth. We don't know what happened with it. There's the other case of the US space agency NASA, which launched an imaging satellite back in the year 2000. It lost contact with it in 2005. 13 years later, an amateur astronomer picked up signals from the satellite, and it is now being examined remotely to see if the science instrument can be turned on. It's still a mystery as to how it began transmitting after so many years of quiet. And mystery does surround the disappearance of Russian satellites Phobos 1 and 2. Phobos 1 was lost after a faulty command error. Phobos 2 sent back pictures of Mars before all contact was lost. Japan's Hitomi satellite mysteriously disappeared in March 2016. It was tracked with 5 objects around it, and then it vanished. They clearly have their own mind. As technology improves, it will become easier to track and locate lost satellites. Space scientists consider this important, given that manned flights to distant planets are being planned for future. Meanwhile, here's one that has come back, not a satellite. China's Tiangong space station burnt up over the middle of the South Pacific after it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere earlier today. According to Chinese state media reports, the spacecraft re-entered the atmosphere around 8:15 a.m. Beijing time, and the quote-unquote vast majority of the craft had burnt up upon re-entry. The 10.4-meter-long Tiangong 1 was launched in 2011 to carry out docking and orbit experiments as part of China's ambitious space program. This program aims to place a permanent station in orbit by 2023, about 5 years from now. It was originally planned to be decommissioned in 2013, but its mission was repeatedly extended.
The bigger issues right now is the things in space that we do not have control of. So in 2009, we saw the first crash between a defunct satellite, a Russian Cosmos satellite, and a U.S. Iridium satellite phone communications satellite. That was the first crash between 2 satellites. And so as these things are floating around, they crash into it, break apart, floating to more things, crash into more things. So the real worry is all the stuff floating around, running into other stuff, which could potentially cause this runaway effect. And limit the potential launch of future satellites.
Staying with the world of technology, last week France announced a bold entry into the world of artificial intelligence. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that his government will pump in nearly $2 billion by 2022 to develop artificial intelligence assets. Macron wants France to challenge the growing dominance of the United States and China by becoming a leading player in technology.
Ce sera un effort dédié d'1,5 milliard d'euros, entraînant directement plus de 500 millions d'euros d'investissements privés supplémentaires qui sera mis en œuvre pour accompagner l'émergence de ce grand pôle mondial de l'intelligence artificielle. Je souhaite que la France soit l'un des leaders de cette intelligence artificielle. Je souhaite que l'Europe soit l'un des leaders de cette intelligence artificielle.
This is a rather ambitious target that President Macron has set for himself. France is not known as a destination for technology innovation. Unlike the United States, venture capital investments are limited in France, held back by strict tax rules. And the French government, which has a fiscal deficit of 2.6% of the GDP, will be unable to match China's level of state investment towards artificial intelligence. So how are they going to do it? Just in January, the Chinese government announced that it will invest a little more than $2 billion towards building an industrial park for artificial intelligence research. On the other side, we have France spending $1.85 billion over 5 years to jumpstart an entire artificial intelligence ecosystem. It is a daunting task. What can Macron offer to the world that the US and China cannot? He has to come up with a USP. This announcement comes at a time when there is a raging debate around the world over privacy of data, and by announcing this fund, Macron basically wants to take the lead in developing technologies that safeguard the principles and values of privacy. In an interview to WION magazine after the announcement, the President of France described the rise of artificial intelligence as a political revolution laying a strong emphasis on the need for a value system. President Macron said that he wants artificial intelligence to be federalized. He's even made a promise to keep all algorithms developed by the French government open. These algorithms, developed through funding from the French government, are going to change the game. At least that's what he hopes for. What is the game plan is the question. According to reports, the government of France is planning to leverage its foreign brain trust, state-owned data and connections to European research institutes to develop an ecosystem for development of artificial intelligence technologies. While there are several possible applications for this technology, President Macron feels healthcare and mobility are the two key sectors where AI will have a deep and immediate impact. His government, though, through this AI fund, will support research and startups working with artificial intelligence technologies in an attempt to become a global innovation hub.